Reverse racism. It's one of those things that we hear every once in a while when something tragic happens to a person of color. It means that minorities can be racist towards white people. It means that that's possible. The term racism comes into serious question when something like what happened to George Floyd happened. It becomes the go-to word for any violence against minorities. As soon as a minority is beaten by police, it's racist police brutality. But when a white person is beaten by police, it's considered police brutality. You don't believe me? Well, take for instance the man by the name of Tony Timpa. Ever heard of him? Tony Timpa is like many of us. He's white and 32 years old. He was killed by police after wailing for 30 minutes trying to gasp for air as his shoulders, back, and neck were pushed into the ground in 2016. The officers that perpetrated the crime even joked about him and made fun of his situation. Tony had schizophrenia and depression and called police because he felt scared when standing outside an adult video store. Clearly not in his right mind. Of course, the officer said he was combative and aggressive, but somebody that's not in their right mind, what can you expect? The department answered no to whether or not Tony resisted arrest, meaning when the police apprehended him, he didn't resist. The officers involved were not charged with homicide. I didn't see a single sign representing the memory of this brutal killing, nor did anyone really give a shit except for his family, which filed a lawsuit against the officers involved. This wasn't labeled as racism. This wasn't even labeled as police brutality. This was labeled as just another killing. Some of those officers got off with minute disciplinary action that did not include losing their jobs. Now you tell me if that's fair to Tony's family. That there was no public uproar for a clear act of police brutality. You want to know why? Because he's fucking white. That's why. George Floyd got murdered by police in the same fashion. His death is unfortunate, horrible, and could have been avoided. I feel for George's family and friends when I say this. Police brutality must end, but we are all victims of it. But what about racism? Are we all victims of racism? Or are only minorities victims of racism? What about the beating of several white people in Ocean City, Maryland during the protests? There's footage of it. You can see for yourself. There's also black people beaten, and I'm sure there were more races beaten as well. I don't know of any, but I'm sure you could find it. And there were stabbings as well, which were perpetrated by two black men. But that's hate. You would ask, what's it matter that they're black? Well, if the shoe was on the other foot, if there were stabbings perpetrated by two white men, it would matter a whole lot more to a whole lot more people. You know, I'm sick of being told that I have privilege, when nobody helped me through the struggles in my life, which there were many. I worked my way to where I am now. I bettered myself. I stayed away from gangs and tried to stay away from crime. I took what little substance I had and built it up to the life I live now. Then some bozo steps to me and tells me I'm privileged because of the color of my skin. Yeah, you can fuck right off. Live life in my shoes for once, just as I can envision myself living life in a black man's shoes. There are ways in which we can succeed in defeating racism. It is to report and act on violence equally, no matter who is involved. If there is injustice, act on it, report it, show it to the world. I'm not privileged, and damn to anyone who says I am. I came from the city just like many of my black brothers and sisters. I was born in the ghettos just like many poor and struggling black families. My father went to prison. My father and my mother worked their asses off, working 3 jobs at one point, just trying to keep a family of 5 kids afloat, and some bitch tells me I'm privileged. I don't say these things for you to feel sorry for me. I tell them to prove a point. We are all in the same boat when it comes to racism. We are all in the same boat when it comes to police brutality. There are many, many, many black people in this world that hate white people, that hate them, that have stigmas against them, that have vendettas against them, that would beat them if given the chance. But there are also many, many, many white people that feel the same about minorities. The hate on both sides must subside in order for us to have a brighter future. We can't let the color of our skin divide us and make us bitter at one another. We must unite against the real enemy of the people, greed and tyranny. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you and goodbye.